Hello everyone, this is Wellbeing Class 6 and this week's Wellbeing class is all about getting a good night's sleep. Now, you know that most of these classes are off the cuff and I'm just giving them every week depending on what I think is most necessary at the moment. So I've had a lot of students sending me work really late at night and a lot of friends and colleagues telling me that they're having difficulty sleeping. So I thought a Wellbeing class for this week on sleep might be a good idea. So we all know that sleep is essential for our well-being. Most of us are grumpy if we haven't had a good night's sleep, and we feel that we're not firing on all cylinders if we're sleep deprived. We also know that sleep deprivation can have a profound impact on our physical health. Now, we tend to blame stress or too much screen time or too much work, or sometimes we blame small children for our lack of sleep. But whatever or whomever we blame, it's a proven fact that regular poor sleep puts you at risk of serious medical conditions, such as obesity, heart disease, diabetes. So basically, it shortens your life expectancy. Now, most of us, as we know, need around 8 hours of good quality sleep a night to function properly. But some of us might need more than that, and some of us might need less. It's up to each of us individually to find out how much sleep we need and then try to achieve it as often as we can. Now, too much sleep can also leave you just as grumpy as too little sleep, and a lot of us wake up with pounding headaches if we slept too long. While a lot of that might be down to the temperature in the room or the fact that we haven't eaten breakfast when we should have eaten breakfast, the fact remains that sleep patterns are really, really important. Okay, so too little sleep is bad for you and too much sleep is bad for you. Sleep matters. Okay, many factors can cause poor sleep, such as certain health conditions like sleep apnea, for example, but in most cases it's just due to bad sleeping habits. An occasional night without sleep makes you feel tired and irritable the next day, but it's not going to harm your long-term health. But several sleepless nights in a row mean that the effects can become more serious. So your brain will be foggier, it'll make it more difficult for you to concentrate, it'll be harder for you to make decisions, you'll start to feel down, you might fall asleep during the day, your risk of injury and accidents at home and at work might increase. And a prolonged lack of sleep can also disrupt your immune system. Now, this is hugely important because if your immune system is disrupted, you're going to be less likely to be able to fend off bugs and illnesses. Now, studies have also shown that people who sleep less than 7 hours a day tend to gain more weight and have a higher risk of becoming obese than those who get 7 hours of sleep or more. That may be because sleep-deprived people have reduced levels of leptin, which is the chemical that makes you feel full, and instead they have increased levels of ghrelin, which is the hunger-stimulating hormone. Now, chronic sleep deprivation can also lead to long-term mood disorders like anxiety and depression, so this is hugely important as well. And missing out on deep sleep can also lead to type 2 diabetes because it changes the way that your body processes glucose, which the body uses for energy. Long-term sleep deprivation also appears to be associated with increased heart rate and increased blood pressure and higher levels of certain chemicals linked with inflammation. So this can put an extra strain on your heart. So if you've been experiencing weeks or even months of sleep deprivation, it will probably take you several weeks to recover, and you're not going to be able to get all that sleep back with one lie-in. So how does this fit into this week's well-being class? Well, like every week, you're going to get some tasks. What are your tasks for this week relating to sleep? I'm not just going to tell you go to sleep. Well, task number 1 is to keep a short sleep diary. I know you're probably sick of diaries at this point. We had the stress diary and then we had the food diary and now we're on to a sleep diary. What is she on about? But, just try it. Just bear with me, okay? So task 1, keep a diary for the next 4 to 5 days and write down the time you went to bed and the time you got up and calculate roughly how long you slept each night, allowing for the few minutes or maybe the hour or so that it took you to fall asleep. Keep an eye on the times of the day as well. Do you have the tendency to go to bed late and get up late, or go to bed early and then get up early? Or is it that you go to bed late and get up early, or go to bed early and get up late? All of that can make a difference to whether or not you're going to be able to establish a good sleep routine. You remember the old proverb, early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy and wise. Well, that's still the best way to go. Definitely in terms of your health. I'm not so sure about wealth at the moment, since so many businesses are closed right now, and my heart goes out to all those business owners getting up early and not being able to go to work. But we're doing the right things for the right reasons, so keep staying at home and stay safe. So that's task number 1, your sleep diary, just to see where you're at the moment. And then task number 2, starting next weekend, if you've found that you're getting less than 7 or 8 hours of sleep a night, try to add on an extra hour or 2 of sleep next weekend. Okay, and the way to do this is to go to bed when you're tired rather than flopping down in front of the TV for another hour or 2, and then allow your body to wake you up in the morning. So don't set any alarms, and make sure that, it's just you that's waking you up in the morning, your own body. So obviously you'll have to try that at the weekend in case some really mean teacher has scheduled an online class for you at 8:50 in the morning on a school day. Okay. So the first time that you try this, expect to sleep for 10 hours or more the first time. And after a while, the amount of time that you sleep will gradually decrease to a normal level, or a level of what is normal and necessary for you. And in between, don't go relying on things like caffeine or energy drinks as a short-term pick-me-up. They might boost your energy and your concentration temporarily, but they can really disrupt your sleep patterns in the long term. And if you don't find a little routine straight away, don't panic. Very few people can find a routine or stick to a routine, but that's not a problem for most people. It's only a problem for people who have insomnia and chronic sleep deprivation. Okay, for people like that, an irregular sleeping pattern is really, really unhelpful. So it's really important to establish regularity and routine. Task number 3 then, try to keep regular hours of going to bed. Now, this programs your brain and your internal body clock to get used to a set routine. It's something that most parents do for their children anyway, especially if they're getting them ready for school in the morning. We have the tendency to say to our kids that you have to go to bed at a certain time. On a normal school day, you might do this for yourself anyway. So the way that you do this is by working out the time that you need to wake up. You then count back the 7 or 8 hours that you need to sleep in order to set your bedtime. Okay, so what time you need to go to sleep at is basically start with what time you need to get up at. So if you need to get up at 7 o'clock, then you need to count back those 7 or 8 hours and say, well, I have to be in bed by 11 p.m. Okay. It's also important to try and wake up at the same time every day. While that may seem like a good idea on a school day, it might not necessarily seem like a good idea to you during lockdown or at the weekends or during the summer, but it is still really, really important. You might also think it's a good idea to try to catch up on sleep after you've had a really, really long night, and then you end up staying in bed for 3 or 4 hours longer than usual. That's fine if it happens once or twice, but doing something like that on a regular basis is going to totally disrupt your sleep routine. Finally then, task 4, make sure that you wind down before going to sleep. Winding down is hugely important. It's a critical stage in preparing for your sleep. There are lots of different ways to relax. Everyone has to find their own way, whatever works for them. For me, what works best is a cup of hot peppermint tea in front of the TV for an hour or even just half an hour before I go to sleep. Other people might prefer listening to relaxing music or reading or taking a warm bath or shower or sitting outside on a bench listening to the birds. Whatever works for you. Okay, whatever helps you to wind down, make sure that you allow at least 30 to 60 minutes for that particular wind down activity before you go to sleep. Okay, so that's task 4. Make sure that you wind down. So that's it for this week. Best of luck with your sleeping patterns and sleeping routines for the next while.